In 1994, Jeff Bezos drove across the country in a used Honda and wrote a business plan on his laptop, while his then-wife navigated from the passenger seat. 30 years later, that man is worth over $170 billion. But that's not the story. The story is what happened between the used Honda and the $170 billion. The decisions made in private, the ruthlessness exercised behind closed doors, the systematic elimination of every obstacle, human, institutional, or legal, that stood between Jeff Bezos and absolute dominance. This is not a story about innovation. It is not a story about hard work. It is a story about obsession, about a specific, cold, calculated obsession with power that most people who've worked closely with Bezos describe using the same word: fear. Stay with me. In the next 17 minutes, we are going inside the empire that Jeff Bezos built. Not the version you see on stage at product launches, not the version in authorized biographies, the internal version, the one documented by former executives, investigative journalists, leaked memos, Senate testimonies, and court records that most people never read. We are going to cover the psychological framework that Bezos used to build Amazon and the human cost that framework created. We are going to look at the specific strategies he used to crush competitors, including tactics that regulators in 3 countries are still investigating today. We are going to examine how he turned a bookseller into the nervous system of the global economy. And we are going to ask the question that nobody in mainstream media wants to answer directly. Is what Jeff Bezos built a company, or is it something the 20th century never had a name for? By the end of this, you will know, because you are already living inside it. Let's start where the obsession started, not with Amazon, with Jeff Bezos's mind. In 1994, Bezos was a 30-year-old vice president at the hedge fund D.E. Shaw in New York, earning a salary that most people would consider exceptional. He walked away from it to sell books on the internet. When people asked why, he described a decision-making framework he called the regret minimization framework. The concept was simple. When you're 80 years old looking back at your life, will you regret not having tried? If the answer is yes, you do it, regardless of the risk, regardless of what others think, regardless of what you leave behind. That framework sounds inspiring when you apply it to yourself. It becomes something else entirely when you apply it to other people. Because here is what former Amazon executives, documented in Brad Stone's investigative reporting and in testimonies before the United States Congress, consistently describe. Bezos applied that same cold calculus to everyone around him. Will I regret not pushing this person harder? Will I regret not eliminating this competitor? Will I regret not extracting more from this supplier? The answer in almost every case was the same. No. Push harder, eliminate, extract more. By 2023, Amazon's annual revenue had reached $574 billion. Its market capitalization at peak reached over $1.6 trillion. It employs over 1.5 million people globally, making it the second largest private employer in the United States, behind only Walmart. It controls approximately 40% of all American e-commerce. Its cloud division, Amazon Web Services, runs the digital infrastructure of over 1 million businesses worldwide, including Netflix, NASA, the CIA, and the majority of the United States federal government. One man, one decision in a Honda, 30 years. But those numbers tell you the scale. They don't tell you the method. And the method is what we're here to examine. Because the method was not genius alone. It was genius combined with something darker. Something that the people who built Amazon alongside Bezos have spent years trying to articulate. And former vice president described it this way: working for Jeff wasn't like working for a demanding boss. It was like working for a force of nature that had learned how to speak. In 2018, the New York Times published an investigation into Amazon's warehouse working conditions based on interviews with hundreds of current and former employees across multiple countries. What they found was systematic. In Amazon's fulfillment centers, the massive warehouses that process millions of packages every day, workers were tracked by the second. Not by the minute, by the second. Handheld scanners recorded every movement. Algorithms calculated expected rates of output and automatically flagged workers who fell below them. In some facilities, workers reported being afraid to take bathroom breaks because the time away from their stations would trigger automated warnings. Between 2013 and 2018, Amazon's serious injury rate in its warehouses was nearly double the industry average for comparable facilities. In 2019 alone, the rate of serious injuries at Amazon warehouses was 80% higher than the warehouse industry standard. These are not allegations. These are figures from the United States Occupational Safety and Health Administration. But here is what makes this relevant beyond working conditions. It reveals the operating philosophy that Bezos built into every layer of Amazon's structure. Maximum extraction, minimum friction, algorithmic accountability applied to every human being in the system, and total absolute intolerance for inefficiency, regardless of its human cost. That philosophy didn't stay in the warehouses. It infected the executive culture. Former Amazon vice presidents and directors have described a practice called the narratives. Before every major meeting, executives were required to write 6-page memos that Bezos would read in silence at the start of the meeting. Anyone who showed up with PowerPoint slides was publicly humiliated. The expectation was perfect, dense, rigorously argued written thought, every time, without exception. And if the memo wasn't good enough, Bezos would read it in silence, put it down and say, in front of everyone, "This is the stupidest thing I have ever read." Is everyone here okay with this? Amazon owns the last mile of global commerce, and it runs every mile the same way. Now we get to the part that regulators in the United States, the European Union, and the United Kingdom have spent years investigating. The part that several former Amazon executives have testified about under oath before congressional committees. The competitive strategy that critics have described as the most ruthless corporate predation of the modern era. In the early 2000s, Amazon's book publishing division had a program that internal documents and testimony from publishing executives later revealed was called the Gazelle Project. The name was not accidental. It came directly from a metaphor Bezos himself used in internal meetings. He described Amazon's relationship with small book publishers the way a cheetah pursues a wounded gazelle. Identify the weakest, isolate them, move in when they cannot run. In practice, this meant systematically identifying book publishers who were financially vulnerable. Publishers who depended heavily on Amazon for distribution and couldn't afford to lose the revenue, then squeezing them, demanding larger discounts, demanding faster delivery terms, demanding exclusivity arrangements that made it impossible to negotiate with other retailers. Publishers who resisted faced consequences. Their books were removed from Amazon's recommendation algorithms. Shipping times were artificially extended. Buy buttons were quietly disabled. These were not small problems for publishers who depended on Amazon for sometimes 60 or 70% of their total sales volume. When this practice was exposed in a 2009 investigation, Amazon changed the name of the program. They did not change the program. This same strategy was later applied not just to publishers, but to third-party sellers on Amazon's marketplace. In 2020, a Wall Street Journal investigation found that Amazon employees had systematically used data from third-party sellers, data those sellers believed was confidential, to identify best-selling products and then launch Amazon's own competing versions. When questioned about this before Congress, Amazon's representatives denied it. 3 months later, Amazon admitted it had happened. But the most profound lever of power that Bezos built is not Amazon's retail operation. It's not its advertising business, which generated $50 billion in revenue in 2023 alone. It's not its logistics network, which now delivers more packages than FedEx. It's Amazon Web Services. In 2006, when Amazon launched AWS, its cloud computing division, most technology executives considered it a distraction. Why would a bookstore want to sell computing power? The question seemed absurd. By 2024, it no longer seems absurd. AWS controls approximately 31% of the entire global cloud computing market. Its nearest competitor, Microsoft Azure, controls 24%. Together, Amazon and Microsoft control more than half of the world's cloud infrastructure. Consider what that means concretely. AWS runs the back-end systems of Netflix, Airbnb, Uber, LinkedIn, Facebook at various points, the BBC, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and a classified $10 billion contract with the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States government. When AWS experienced a major outage in December 2021, it took down significant portions of the internet across the eastern United States for nearly 8 hours. Airlines froze. Smart home devices stopped working. delivery systems went offline. A company that started selling books in 1994 now holds more quiet leverage over the functioning of modern civilization than most nation-states. And here is the dimension of this that Bezos understood before almost anyone else. Physical infrastructure can be regulated. Physical stores can be closed. Physical supply chains can be disrupted. But once your infrastructure becomes the nervous system of the digital economy, once removing you would cause civilization-level disruption, you become something different. You become necessary. And necessary things are very, very difficult to control. In 2000, 4 years before Google went public, 6 years before Twitter existed, 14 years before Uber launched, Jeff Bezos quietly founded Blue Origin, a space company. Not quietly in the sense that it was hidden, quietly in the sense that almost no one paid attention. For years, Blue Origin operated in near total secrecy out of a facility in Kent, Washington. Bezos funded it personally. He sold approximately $1 billion in Amazon stock every year to finance it. And he said almost nothing about it publicly for nearly a decade. His stated vision for Blue Origin is not commercial space tourism, despite what the headlines suggest. His stated vision, expressed in multiple speeches and interviews, is the permanent industrialization of space, the movement of heavy industry off Earth, the construction of what he calls O'Neill colonies, rotating space habitats capable of housing 1 trillion human beings across the solar system. Whether you believe that vision is achievable or not is irrelevant. What matters is the underlying logic, because Bezos has been explicit about it. On Earth, resources are finite. Regulations exist, governments have jurisdiction, borders create constraints. But in space, in the asteroid belt, on the moon, in the orbital lanes between planets, there are no environmental regulations. There are no labor laws. There are no governments with jurisdiction. There are no governments in space. For a man whose entire career has been defined by the systematic removal of every constraint on his ability to operate. That is not an observation, that is a strategy. There is one more dimension of the Bezos story that almost never gets examined seriously: the personal transformation. In the late 1990s, Jeff Bezos was known as the skinny, laughing bookseller from Seattle. Balding, awkward, enthusiastic. The kind of person who seemed almost comically unthreatening. Business journalists wrote profiles describing him as goofy, nerdy, and earnest. By the mid-2010s, something had changed. Bezos had transformed physically, dramatically, almost unnervingly so. He began an intense physical training regimen. He became muscular in a way that seemed deliberate, almost performative. The goofy bookseller disappeared. What replaced him looked like something that had been specifically engineered to project dominance. Former executives who worked with Bezos across both periods have noted that the internal culture shifted correspondingly. The early Amazon had urgency and chaos, but also a kind of shared mission energy. The later Amazon, the post-transformation Amazon, became colder, more precise, more ruthless in ways that felt architectural rather than incidental. One former senior executive, quoted anonymously in a 2021 profile, described it this way: "In the early days, Jeff was building something. By the end, Jeff was protecting something. And those two modes of operating feel completely different from the inside. The skinny bookseller became the predator, and the predator built something that now touches almost every aspect of daily life for hundreds of millions of people across 6 continents. That transformation didn't happen by accident. It happened by design. So what is Jeff Bezos? He is not simply a successful entrepreneur. He is the architect of the most comprehensive system of commercial control ever built by a private individual in human history. A system that controls what you buy, where it comes from, how it gets to you, what media you watch, what cloud your government runs on, and, if his vision is realized, eventually, where the human species goes next. You didn't choose to live inside that system. You were placed inside it, one convenient delivery at a time, one Prime subscription at a time, one AWS server at a time. And now that you know how it was built and what it cost, you get to decide what you think about it. Comment Empire below if this changed how you see him. Subscribe, because next week we go inside the shadow club that only 12 billionaires on Earth can join. And what they decide in those rooms affects every one of us. I'll see you in the next one.